Hello, Ann. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Good evening.
How you doing, Linda?
Good. How about you, Steve?
Doing fine. Ready for spring.
No kidding.
I'm ready for the snow. I can't wait for the snow.
Well, I'm in Colorado. I don't need snow. Well, I do need snow, but that's all right.
Yeah. What part?
Keystone.
Oh, I'll be there in a month.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll try to leave you some snow. We lose Ann already?
She would just pop back in. There she is.
1 minute. I hope that was the right finger you were showing us. Linda, welcome officially to the committee. We haven't had a chance to meet with you in person, I don't think. So
No, thank you. That was my third commission. Hopefully this one sticks. Or all my other commissions have closed up.
we'll make it a goal to keep this one going.
Yeah,
Don't bring that kind of luck to this one.
I know. I should have said that.
I bet.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I've got people jumping on here.
Yeah, there we go. You ready for the snowstorm? Is it gonna come or no?
I just watched the weather. They said 8 to 12 inches.
I know. I was at the grocery store and you would think we were gonna, not come out of our houses for a month.
Of course, it's St. Louis. You never know. It might be a month.
John, I'm jealous of that background you have.
Yeah, it's very fake and it's Michigan and I don't know how to get it off, but
Okay.
You didn't have to tell us the truth.
yeah, I know. I am just not good at Zoom. We Teams all day long, so my computer gets discombobulated with the Zoom.
Hmm.
Ann doesn't care. Hi, Ann. Oh, and you're muted, Ann.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
Great. Okay, thank you for your patience. I'm my own tech support here, so it looks like our live and streaming on YouTube. Let me make sure everyone is in the meeting. We have one more here. This will be Stephanie joining us. There we go.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie.
Are we waiting on anybody else, Ann?
I don't think so. It looks like we're ready to go.
Okay, well, we can call the meeting to order at 6:34. And then can you read off everybody that's for attendance?
Certainly, we have Beth Nelson, Linda Robson, Adam Bear, Steve Korbecki, Meg Johnson, Cassie Harold, John Steinhubel, Fritz Wiesehan, and Stephanie Peterson.
Then we'll go over the minutes. Does everybody have any or anything to comment on the minutes or any changes?
I have my motion to approve is written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All minutes stand approved.
And I apologize. I want to back up a minute too. I wanted to welcome Linda to the commission, and Michelle couldn't be here, but yeah, welcome to the Parks and Trails Commission.
Thank you.
Welcome, Linda.
Then there's nothing under the unfinished business, but under the new business, we've got the Longview Park Playground Master Plan Agreement. Do you want to review that, Ann? And I know we just got that a little while ago.
Yeah, I would just say before we jump into that, does anyone have a park report that you'd like to share? No? Michelle Francisco sent me a note today saying that she had been out in the parks, even though it's cold, and gave me a brief report. So I appreciated that.
I've been in all of them at preservation. I haven't seen any major issues at all.
Okay, great. All right, thank you for that. So I sent out an email including each of the SWT agreements, addendums to our original agreement that we had for the playground master plan that we went through that whole process last year. And so we have two things this evening. One of them is the construction documents and the construction administration for the Drace Park Playground. And then the second is to proceed with that same process that we did last year for Drace, but this year at Longview. So that would be the master planning portion for Longview, which would allow us to apply for the municipal park grant. What questions does anyone have about those two?
And would it be on the same timeline for Longview as we were with Drace?
Yes, as far as applying for the grant in the fall.
Okay,
Yes.
so a lot of crunch work in springtime, early summer then.
Yes. Yeah, so that's a good question, Steve. The last go round was a very tight time schedule because we were doing the master planning for all three parks. We had to prioritize which park needed to be addressed first, second, and third. And so we won't need to do that piece of the process time. So we won't, the time schedule won't be as tight this year, as not even close as it was last year. So that's That's really encouraging considering we have that and the Drace Playground both for 2022.
Is this estimated cost about the same as it was for the first time around?
Yes.
Well, I think SWT did a good job for us last time. So assuming the pricing is in line, it makes sense for me, for at least my perspective, go ahead and go forward with that one.
Right. And so that's another good point. You know, for this process, we went through the RFQ and received proposals from the whole, I think we had 5 firms for this one. And we went through and evaluated all of those. So to go through that whole process again, having SWT completing the first portion of the project, it makes the most sense to continue that contract with these items as addendums to that contract, because essentially we would go through the same process again to evaluate, and they have already completed a substantial portion of the work. So that would also be a cost savings to the city.
So do you need an emotion to accept the addendum or to propose the addendum, or what do you need?
Can I ask one more question before you do that though?
Sure.
Is there any kind of legal reason that you would need to get more than one company or get a different bid or something like that? Or kind of some sort of precedence as far as competition and, you know?
Not at this, because we have already gone through that whole public process to select SWT in the first place.
It's like it's a continuum of the first phase, basically.
Exactly. And so this, if you all recommend that we proceed with this plan, these 2 addendums would go to the Board of Aldermen at the next Board of Aldermen meeting. And so, you know, our legal will review the contract. So you're not necessarily looking at the contracts themselves, recommending that we proceed with both of these items at the next Board of Aldermen meeting.
And there's no surprises on the Drace one, right? That's the numbers that were quoted before and everything's the same. There's no change.
Correct.
And who is going to, just to make sure we're cautious on this, who's going to oversee that? Who's going to project manage that project?
So we will bid the construction, and then SWT will be the construction administrator. So SWT will act as our general contractor, if you will, to ensure that the construction contractor that is selected after the project is bid carries out what is spec'd in the scope.
So no one from the city technically will be overseeing the project. I mean, you'll be there and know what's going on, but city administrator, nobody's like that is overseeing this at a higher level.
That's right. It would be myself and our public works director. If we were called in on something, the 2 of us would, depending on if it's which part of the scope it is. But part of our recommendations through our city audits is that city staff not be the project managers on projects. And we have done that in the past to save the city money. But that was one of the recommendations. And so that is why we're proceeding with SWT being the construction manager on the project.
Okay.
I, of course, will be the liaison. If there's something, you know, that's very public works related, we would draw on our public works department as it applies.
Well, I'm glad we're following the audit advice, especially. I don't want to get into another contest with what the other things that have gone on. So, I think I'll make a motion that we take both of these to the board for their approval at the next meeting.
I
Okay.
second.
That was Stephanie. Okay.
And I have a question real quick before the voting. Is this a vote that we have to do tonight? The reason I ask is I have not, I will probably, if it is a vote tonight, I'll probably abstain. I've had a chance to review the documents all the way. Is this something that we can review and even email in the next day or so, a vote? Or, I mean, most likely everything, I'm good with it, but I just, given that we just received these, haven't had a chance to go over them all.
Well, we can't vote officially via email. And since you'll be voting at the Board of Aldermen meeting, I think recusing yourself from the vote tonight would be fine. I mean, if you're pleased with proceeding that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously with abstention.
So it's not unanimously, it's with Fritz abstaining.
Yes, so I will list each of you.
Yes.
Well, do you want it as a roll call vote, Fritz? I mean, that's how, I guess Robert's rules would say each person needs to vote aye or nay. Or do you want it, you tell me how you would like it recorded.
Yeah, that's, we can do a roll call. That's fine.
Okay. Beth Nelson,
Aye.
Linda Robson,
Aye.
Adam Bear,
Aye.
Steve Korbecki,
Aye.
Meg Johnson,
Aye.
Cassie Harold,
Aye.
John Steinhubel,
Aye.
Fritz Wiesehan,
Abstain.
Stephanie Peterson.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Okay. On to item number 3, pavilion rental pricing changes. If you remember, before the end of the year, I sent out an extensive email highlighting proposed changes for 2022, a summary of all of 2021, including the pricing for each of the pavilions, resident, non-resident. Tonight, you received the comparison, so you can see 2021 and 2022. Tonight, I'm going to be asking for a recommendation, a motion to make the change for 2022, but I want to highlight one item. We reviewed via email that we would keep the 2021 pricing for the weekday rentals. Is everybody with me on this? Okay. However, after working to build those into our system, our rental system, we're not able to differentiate between weekday and weekend pricing and have it available for rent online. So I would propose that we utilize the increased pricing for 2022 every day of the week. The one sort of benefit of the weekdays is that we always have the pavilions available. If they're not being rented, anyone can come and use them. And that's often what happens during the week anyway. Someone will call and say, do you have a rental on Wednesday night? We say no. And then we just tell them that, you can use it. If there's a paying rental there, then it will show that it's reserved. And a lot of times people call back on Wednesday, just double check that it's not booked for that night. So I wanted to just put that out to you because it's a little bit different than what we discussed via email, and get any feedback and input that you have. just as a second note, we will be changing systems, our management software system, we will be changing this year. And we would be able to differentiate those two in the new system and allow for online reservations. So I think we can see how this year goes, look at our numbers, and then adjust accordingly next year when we have our new system. But I would like your feedback. So if you sort of raise your hand, I'll call on individuals to speak. Stephanie.
So one thing about the numbers is it's COVID's going to screw them all up. I mean, and God knows what it's going to be like the rest of the year. So you might have to do a few years before you really get a good feel for what it is. And my only concern with the numbers was it's like 150% increase. I mean, it's a pretty big jump. Do you think that's going to price us out of the market, so to speak? I mean,
yeah, it's a big jump for people who are doing 4 hours only. So anybody who booked double rentals, it would be the same. It gives some additional flexibility as far as what time the rental begins and what time it ends. But it is a big jump, right? I mean, so I looked and sent out all of the market comparison for neighboring cities, and we're in line with them. So if you look at market comparisons, we're in good shape. For anyone who's been renting year after year in town and country parks, it will be an increase, for those people. So
I couldn't really tell when I look at the other ones, but are those all like all day rates as well at all those other parks? They're all like, there's no more 4-hour rentals or whatever.
correct. Adam?
I don't see anything for the Longview house rental on there. Is that totally different topic?
It is. I thought we would deal with that separately. I don't think we're in a position to raise those rates right now. I would like to get back to pre-2020 first. That was my thought. So yes, Longview is intentionally left out of this category.
Okay.
And Steve, did you have your hand up?
Well, I was just curious, the document you sent out today, the Parks and Trails note, not the minutes, but the brochure. They had pricing in it. What pricing was that? I couldn't remember by looking at it.
That is the recommended pricing that we all discussed before the holidays, but it does not include those weekday rentals.
Okay.
So what you see there is what I'm recommending that we do for 2022.
Gotcha.
I agree with Stephanie. At first glance, it looks like a big jump, but the fact that it's for a full day, I feel like the pricing is not bad for an entire day to have the availability, however you want to use it. I'm assuming that's a lot easier on the Parks and Trails Commission, like you all as well, not having to maintain, 2 hours here, 4 hours here, and just let a group have it for the entire day. So I think the pricing seems good for a whole day. I'm fine with it.
You brought up a good point, Beth, that I hadn't touched on. I talked to a few other cities looking at the market comparisons, and that's why people have gone to the full days. Then you have one time that you're cleaning prior,
Right.
one you're cleaning after, and it streamlines that part of the process.
I would
And-
also,
And staffing costs.
Yeah.
Adam?
sorry, Ann, to cut you off. I would also guess that these are mostly one-time rentals as opposed to ongoing repeat renters who would feel a big price increase. If I've never purchased a banana, then I don't have a frame of reference on the price of a banana, or if I've never rented a pavilion. So the frame of reference is probably pretty clear, I would guess.
Most renters are one time a year, a birthday or family reunion. Yeah.
So a one-time charge is not going to make a big difference if it's gone up by, X amount, I would think.
Did I, oh, Kath,
Me? Sorry, I didn't hear. I was just gonna say, I think you have it on here, rent a pavilion, you have full day rental, but I think just the explanation that we've moved to full day rentals and the rates reflect that might make people who call that out a little more comfortable with the rates.
Good idea.
thank you. That, I appreciate that.
Well, the other thing is, if we find that people are really pushing back and not renting, we can always go in and revise them.
That's right.
So,
Exactly, yeah.
And have
Yes.
you had many people that over the years that have rented, that have taken 2 slots in a day to see? I mean, I know that the comparison is for a full day and I see the benefits. I was just curious, is there a need or a want that people have for the full day as opposed to the half days? And the only reason I ask is if we did, a full day at 125, could you do 2 half days at 75 each and it for residents? And I wasn't sure what the use was of, or the desire was of rentals.
So some people did book two rentals per day to make it into an 8-hour rental.
Mhm.
I would say most people would like a 6-hour rental.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that was the request that we had more of. I think people sort of settled for a 4-hour rental and made that work. Just that flexibility, when we break it into 2, essentially you can sort of either have lunch or you can have dinner at your party. And it just gives a little more flexibility with decorating and that sort of thing, especially for birthdays.
How is it gonna work if the rental starts at 10, but let's say somebody's party doesn't start until 3, and they don't show up until 2 o'clock to start, decorating, but it was cleaned before 10 for the day, but then it's open, it's nothing's to keep the public from walking in there, dropping some litter or spilling some things on the table. How is that going to be maintained so that it's clean when they actually show up and want to use it?
That's a great question. The only thing that we have come up with is to communicate that clearly to both the renter. So if it's your pavilion for the day, that we will clean at 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then also to communicate it to park goers that we have a rental coming and it's closed from this time to this time.
Oh.
So that we don't have that issue.
Is there a way to rope it off? I know that sounds awful to do at a park, but I can just see kids and people are not going to pay attention to a sign on the wall saying it's closed. There's an open bench. Of course I'm going to go sit down.
Well, we're trying to take the least obtrusive approach. So
Yeah.
if someone is the pavilion and the picnic tables and cleans up their mess, it's no problem, right? And it would be nice for people to be able to do that. Like you said, if it's open and available, there's no reason to not use it. If it becomes an issue, then we'll likely just have to take that next step and rope it off, put up cones, put up tape, something to indicate that you cannot use it at all. So I think we're just going to have to beef up signage a bit this year.
Okay.
Anyone else? Are we ready to vote? And we're taking this vote just as our official vote because although I collected all of your input via email, you can't have an official vote via email. And even some things changed a little bit. So I'd like to just go ahead and vote on this tonight. I will do just a voice vote unless anyone wants me to call the roll. All right, all in favor of the proposed pavilion rental pricing changes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, they stand approved.
Are you gonna
Yeah,
give
good.
us some feedback on this so that, you know, if it's not working out, we can adjust as necessary, like 6 months from now or?
For sure, or if a problem, unforeseen problem arises, you know, we'll adapt. Yeah,
Sorry, Fritz, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yep, that's what I was gonna ask. So we're
Oh,
good. Thank you.
good.
great. All right, we're moving right on to item number 4, the sponsorship prospectus. Was everybody able to open that? I know it was a pretty large file. Really, we're going to utilize that. The board has given direction to try to sponsor as many events as we can at 100%. And I know we discussed this at our November meeting. And so this is an effort to begin soliciting very early in a comprehensive way for events for 2022. And I'm just sharing it with you so that if you have feedback, input, we'll continue to, you know, it's a living document. So if we need to add an event, we can. If we need to make some adjustments, we'll do that as needed. And then I will also be sharing it with you to solicit sponsors of your dear friends and family. If you know someone, employers, anyone in your network who may be interested in sponsoring an event, we would love to.
I think it's very nicely done, Anne. It's a great shopping list for a prospective sponsor. Well done to the artistes.
Thank you. Fritz.
And yeah, I was just curious, a couple things. Do you have any of, I know we've talked before of any of the criteria for some of these as far as the estimated attendance? You know, how many, you know, the type of, I mean, can those type of details, you know, what, if it's for the concerts, if there's food vendors, you know, something, I know that some of that's on there, but something that if a business or someone is looking to sponsor an event, that they kind of have an idea of what the expectations are of the attendance. I know the demographics of the city are at the beginning. And then the other question I had was, if these are not sponsored, are they all still within the budget? I know there's a couple new events. And just wanted to know if those were still would be covered in this year's budget.
Only the budgeted events would happen if we do not have them sponsored. Any events that are not in the budget would not happen unless they are sponsored.
So of the events that are not in the budget, which would those be?
E-cycling, bike clinics, camp out. I think those are the only 3.
Movie night?
Movie night is in the budget.
It is in the budget, okay.
And so how much for those events, how much do we need to collect for sponsorship to ensure that we're able to do those?
The amount listed on each of them.
So we need to collect 5,000 for the bikes and 1,000 for the e-cycling. And
yeah, the only thing I would say about the mountain bike clinics is that they could also be offered as a fee. So they could be a cost recovery more like a
Okay.
program. E-cycling, that wouldn't work. We wouldn't charge a fee for someone to bring their items to the event. And then the camp out, we do some cost recovery with the camp out.
Okay.
But the reality is, if we don't get a sponsor on those events, we don't publicize them. Unless we
Right.
go to the for fee basis kind of thing.
That's right. We do have a new REI opening in Town and Country. I don't know if you've heard. So those outdoor events are specifically in anticipation of REI, and I've reached out to them for sponsors. So if anyone knows someone at REI, please send them my way, because it's a little tricky opening a new store, I think, because they haven't hired all the Town and Country people. So I'm having a little bit of a tricky time trying to find the right person. They won't be opening until summer.
Where are they going in?
Town and Country Crossing.
Oh, okay. Is that the one that's been under construction for quite some time, the first building? Yeah,
Oh, great.
nice names.
Okay, if you have any sponsors in mind, send them my way. If you have any input that you'd like to give into this, please do. Fritz, thank you for that, for estimated attendance. I will add that to each of these. And if you think of anything else, as looking at it as if you were the sponsor, if there's something else you'd like to see in there that would encourage you to sponsor the event, just send it my way.
And do we focus at all on the Town and Country businesses? Like Clementine's is fairly new and I think seem to be doing quite well, for example, approaching the business owners that are currently in the area of Town Square and asking them to sponsor, one of the concerts or something like that.
We haven't yet. So that's what we're using this document for.
I'm just asking in the past whether that's been where the majority of the sponsorships come from or elsewhere.
We have not had, I don't want to leave anybody out. We haven't had many or any, I take that back. Subway has sponsored a number of events. But we haven't had Clementine's yet. Katie Ward was speaking with them about trying to get them out on site at many of the events. And we haven't quite worked that out yet. They require quite a large crowd to come on site. So maybe for Fire and Ice.
What about Starbucks, Straub's? Did they ever sponsor anything?
Straub's has in the past, yes. And I don't believe Starbucks has. Panera Bread has before. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a nice logical place to look, right? Is right next to the event. And we will reach out to everyone in that shopping center. Stephanie, did you have something?
I did. So if you were trying to get a sponsor, what kind of advertising do they get from the sponsorship? I mean, is there a sign? Is there a banner? I mean, like, so they know what they're getting if you're trying to drum up some sponsors.
If you look at the second page of the prospectus,
Yeah.
That's what it lists. So
It just says signage banners at the event, but I mean, can you give us a better idea of like, what's the typical?
So usually we do, depending on the sponsorship level. For example, if someone would sponsor the band at Fall Fire and Ice, they would have a banner on the band stage.
So it's like one banner basically.
Yes. And then we've also done sort of as the welcoming sponsors, the event sponsor, community sponsor and such at Fall Fire and Ice. We had sort of thank you sponsor with the sponsor name printed on like real estate sign adjacent to their booth.
Mhm.
And then for the concert series, we include a sponsor booth for each of the sponsorships.
At no cost. Like that you just set it up for them, or?
They bring the booth. And so we don't charge, their sponsorship includes their booth on site.
Okay.
And then all of the other items listed, of course. So the city newsletter, the Parks and Recreation newsletter, our city website, in all of our advertisement for each of the events.
And with, I mean, not specifics, but some of the businesses that were listed, I think would be great for the events. Do you see those at the levels that we have, such as the concert series and or Fire and Ice, that those would be levels that are, a lot of the businesses would be interested in, like when Subway or some of the other businesses, were they participating at, for example, the gold sponsor of the concert series at 3,000? Is that something that Subway has participated in at that level before? Or is there an opportunity? And one of the reasons I asked as well, the first sponsorship deadline is in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from tomorrow, for the first concert. So I was curious on what your expectations are for that, or do you think there's opportunities for, a lower level, if you will, sponsorship available for different vendors or businesses?
And that's kind of another question I have along those lines. I mean, is there a vendor level that's not a sponsorship, but they're participating? We have a booth, they're selling stuff versus a sponsorship. I mean, that's two different things, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we haven't done it that way in the past. And I was thinking of this prospectus as trying to get larger sponsors for events. But I certainly don't want to cut out any smaller level sponsors either, such as, for example, Subway did, a booth on site and gave coupons and various things over the years. So I will just add to that. I think that's a great recommendation that we have more of a booth sponsor also. Is that what you were thinking, that if you have a booth on site, you have a lower level sponsorship?
Well, that or just a vendor stall, like, especially like they're doing food or something like that. I mean, they're not a sponsor, but they want to come and sell their whatever. I mean, I don't know. Like, so for instance, I'm friends with the guy at the microbrewery. He wants to come sell beer. Does he have to buy a sponsorship, or is there some sort of vendor level kind of participation?
So for our food and
Don't
drink,
happen.
we do not have a sponsor that we invite them to come participate in the event.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So you invite the vendors
Yes, exactly.
at no cost.
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
Because it is difficult. We have learned from the restaurants that it's quite an investment on their
Yes.
to come, and we want them, right? I mean, we want food and drink vendors, especially local ones. So we do not charge. Some people would have, say, a booth fee for all vendors, right? Because they're selling our event, but we do not.
Okay, that's kind of what I was asking. So the vendor is completely different from the sponsorship. So you could have the big sponsors, little sponsors, and then the vendors are different.
Correct.
Okay.
Hey, Anna, have we ever hit up any of the big companies that are located, like Energizer, Elwood, the big corporations that happen to have their headquarters here in our town?
We haven't.
For Jones.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you offline. I got a few ideas. I mean, I work with Energizer a lot, but yeah.
Okay.
as you probably noticed, they don't do a ton of community involvement, but maybe their hometown they would.
Yeah. Great, that would be great. It really, it's always so helpful to just have a lead or a connection to make those calls. It gets you a lot further.
I know Home Depot has donated to Mason Ridge for different events. I don't know if they would be interested in the camp out, maybe. I was thinking, like, provide the firewood and be the sponsor or something like that.
Good idea. Okay, if you think of anything else or have someone to send me, just do so anytime. You don't need to wait for me to ask again. I'm always welcome. All right, number 5.
And just a quick question. Do you have a list of businesses that are within Town and Country? Do you have a list somewhere?
Yes, through our planning department.
If you're able to send that out, then I think that helps us. We can look through the list and see where we know people.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that suggestion.
Sure.
Okay. All right, priorities list for 2022 is our next item. I'm not going to dive very deep into this tonight. I'm going to send you a similar Google Doc that we've used in the past. And so it will list some of the items that we know we are doing, such as we just recommended the Longview master plan, the Drace Park playground construction. So we know we are doing some items that are tied to the budget. We know we are doing some events that are tied to the budget. But that's a chance to get out new ideas and also prioritize anything else that comes up. So I will be sending you a Google Doc and a Google form to fill out before our next meeting. Any comments, input, questions about that? I know most of you have done it before. Linda, I know you're new to this commission, but your other commissions have done that before as well. Yeah, okay. Our last item, trail master plan clarification. Alderman Weezahan asked to include this, and I think you want to speak to that, Fritz.
Yeah, thank you. It was brought up to me, and I hadn't really dove into the details originally, but there's a trail proposed that begins at Thornhill and goes up through the neighborhoods to Clayton. It's along the Ameren easement line. There's no capital improvement funds allocated for it anytime soon at all. And I was not involved, obviously, with the discussion, and I just wanted to bring it up again. I'm not necessarily looking for a vote tonight, but just wanted to bring up the discussion. If anybody had any thoughts or input of keeping this on, kind of the thoughts of how, and my thought of bringing it up was, it'd be a very difficult project, in my opinion, and some of the discussions that I've had to take place. There's access to it. It'd be nice. It'd be a nice addition. It'd be very expensive, and just I was just looking at it from the aspect of if it's something that I thought we could do, that I thought had a lot of support, it would make sense. But if there's not funding for it, if the support is questionable, and if the likelihood of it actually taking place is questionable, I wanted to at least bring it up to the commission, get some thoughts and feedback, and kind of see what everybody thought on, where on the project of keeping it on the plan or removing it from the master plan.
John?
Yeah, hey, Fritz, one, is that the only part of the trail that's being not funded? Like, where are we with the status with the ones that are going further north? And are we finishing the Mason Road south? Like, what's the status of, are they all on hold? And this is gonna be the most, was this gonna be the next phase after the current project on topping?
No, this is not a phase at all. That
Okay.
this is not associated with Mason. This is separate from Mason. This is a trail that starts in the Thornhill neighborhood. It goes up through Mason Valley, through Tammany, through Takara, and then it connects to Clayton. So it goes along, that Ameren power line, easement line that
So
you
it's
see
not a
on-
continuation of the current trail that's going down topping.
Correct. It
It's a
has nothing to
totally
do with
separate
that.
trail.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's literally in neighborhoods. It's not on any roads. It connects to the Clayton Trail through Takara. So right in front of Principia is where the connection to an existing trail would be. And I just kind of wanted to given that this is a different type of a trail, that it's not associated with any existing road. I believe that's accurate, but just wanted to get everyone's thoughts of, what, if anybody was involved with implementing this, and how it came to be, and just kind of want to have a discussion about it.
I would like to just speak to it briefly, and then I see a lot of hands up, so we will get to every person who would like to speak. So the trail master plan, we have a few new people since we've gone through the process. I know some of you have gone through the process a few times. But so SWT Design developed this trail master plan with a lot of public input. Part of their job is to identify trail possibilities, potentials within the city of Town and Country. And this was one of those trails. I don't know how many of you remember, but I flew over this trail in a gyroplane, which was very fun and cool. However, what I learned from that very fun flight was that this trail is literally in people's backyards. And for those of you who have been on the commission for a long time, we discussed, that essentially the city tackles funded projects first, funded meaning that we have a grant available for them, projects that we have either few easements or easements that the city can obtain, and the city would never utilize eminent domain to build a trail. And so for all of those reasons, basically every other trail on the plan rose above that trail because it doesn't meet any of those criteria. And that's why you see no funding for it in the 5-year capital plan. I just wanted to back up a little bit because some people are new, I know, and even the comment that the city is looking to build a trail in that area would be completely inaccurate. Who had their hand up first? Steve.
Meg, go ahead.
Oh, you defer to Meg. Meg.
Me? Okay.
Meg. Yeah.
Why is this coming up now, Fritz? I mean, we had suspended all work, at least our committee had suspended all work on all trails save topping because the master plan priority trails that Ann speaks of are now under the governance of the county. I have no recollection of us ever speaking about the legitimacy of that trail. That was sort of a, hey, what if we did it this way? But why is it coming up now? Who brought it up? Where's this? What's the origin?
Someone brought it up to me on the whole idea of the trail. And so as I started looking into it, I was kind of the same idea of from a funding mechanism, some of the same points that Ann just mentioned. Wanted to get a history of it and people's thoughts of if this was something that we wanted to continue to keep on the trail plan, if there's, if we're not going to use eminent domain, if there's not a funding, is it worth even keeping on the master trail plan if it's something that the city isn't intending to do?
I would say, given our experience with Mason Road South, which basically put a damper on all trail development, I would say no. I don't think we ever proposed that this was a priority trail. We were focused on Mason Road. We were focused on other byways, Conway Road, Mason Road North. Opinion, I don't think we ever thought that was a legitimate trail. And as Ann points out, given her experience, it was so unlikely as to be at the bottom of the list, for all the reasons
Right.
mentioned. That's my recollection of it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I would just add that I think rather than piecemealing this, we may want to go back in and look at the whole master trail plan again sometime in the next 6 to 12 months and review what we've got on there still, because a lot's changed.
Yeah.
As Meg said, a lot's changed about what's getting done, what's not getting done, who's got ownership of it. And I would suggest rather than piecemealing it, for your constituents, I think you could tell them that this is not a high priority, because this is in your constituents' backyard, obviously. So I think you tell them it's not all a high priority. We're going to go back and review the whole plan. I'm suggesting we think about doing that.
Yeah, I would think for Ward 2, the reason is it coming up because they want it or they don't want it? What are they, which way is the wind blowing that this is kind of becoming a topic of conversation in Ward 2?
And to be clear, it was brought up. There was not in the person that brought it up. It was one person that really was kind of curious when they saw it, and it just led me to dive into it more because I had seen it on the map and I really never paid attention that it was not connected to associated with a road or
right.
And so when I saw it and kind of looked into it more, I wanted a little bit more background just because of the uniqueness of it, given that it is in it is in residents' backyards, and I was thinking of the capacity of use of all of the neighborhoods that are there. It's a large project for a that only a portion of the community would really be able to benefit from, even more so than some of the other sidewalks that are along existing roads.
Right. And I also think back in the day that the idea of that trail should have come about. Part of the history was it was a non-traffic area. So for children riding bicycles or whatever, if we were to, it was desirable because there was no car participation in that area. But the only point
makes sense.
Princeton Terrace or whatever that intersection is with Clayton, and I know Craig Wilde or whomever was the guy at the time said that was the worst possible spot to try to create a connection over to the Clayton Road Trail because it's a total blind spot on the road. There was no support for, developing any kind of connection at the Clayton Road end because of the danger of that spot, of that area. So.
Okay.
Stephanie?
I'm sorry. I think part of the original plan was to try to connect all those kids that live in Mason Valley to the Clayton Road Trail.
Right.
And I can tell you that at this point, I personally ran this afternoon, so I can tell you what's happened. What's happened is that there is now a dirt pathway that the citizens have developed, and it's bike tracks on it, and there's dog tracks on it. I just ran it like 3 hours ago, which connects Tammany Road off of Hawkshead Court, past the tennis court, down to Featherstone Drive. So the people have already made a pathway, basically.
Wow.
And it just started out as a deer trail, but at this point it is a pretty well-developed dirt trail coming south of Hawkshead, and then a relatively well-established grass trail that goes right past the tennis court on the Featherstone. So the need for that trail probably not there anymore because everybody's already using this one. And that's how they're getting to the Clayton Road Trail.
You can actually see that dirt trail on a Google Maps view. You know,
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now. You see it in the dirt trail there.
Well, you
Yeah.
could probably add it if you want to, but it's pretty well developed trail at this point, and a lot of people use it. I mean, there's, you know, it is dirt though, dirt and grass. But it's visible, like if you can see like where the lines in the grass go, everybody goes exactly down this one stretch, so.
Mhm.
Anyway, but I don't think that trail's needed so much anymore because now everybody, that's what they're doing now to get to Clayton Road.
But that shows that if it was a paved trail, it would be used.
It would be used. I
Right.
mean, clearly people are cutting through from
Right.
Mason Valley up to Clayton Road.
Hey,
That's
Fritz,
why,
I would say leave it on for future talk, right? I wouldn't take it away. I mean, it's
That's-
kind of worthless use without making it a trail.
that's my whole point. What if 10, a future
Yeah.
generation wants to make this trail and it's no longer on, I know that you could always add it to the plan, but I think the confusion here is that it's on something called Master Trail Plan. So people think that it's in the works, it's a plan we have in place, but that's not the case. So I think if there was I don't know that we want to reword it or anything or put it somewhere else, but I don't see the benefit of removing it if we're not doing anything with it.
Totally
Well,
agree.
wasn't Dan, weren't they color coded originally?
Yeah.
So I think that's in the master trail plan, but we had color coded the various routes in terms of their priority.
That's right. It's the
Not
low,
the whole.
the
It's got to
lowest.
be the lowest priority. I mean, I think there's one like that runs behind Cedar Springs and over in that side of town and country. So, but I take Steve's point. Maybe when we're all together again, one thing we could look at this spring, because we haven't discussed it in a long while, is that master plan and see, what it means to us today, given that there have been a lot of changes in co-op by the county of some of those projects. So,
Yeah, and I do think it's valuable to keep identified trails on the plan. It may be beneficial to rather, I think from a planning perspective, we know how difficult it is to get a priority 1 trail accomplished.
right.
And the reality of getting even to priority 2
Right.
may not be in our lifetime. So, but from someone who has not been involved in the process, could see a variety of the trails on the plan and think the city is working on them, right? Especially if someone says, you're going to have a trail in your backyard, you better do something, right? That can happen, as we all know. And it may be worthwhile to just deprioritize them rather than get priority 3, just have identified other areas, or something to that effect.
Right.
Calling something different.
Right. Because
Right.
But I would think,
identified- yeah.
to Fritz's point about the status of trails, the public response back is, at this point in time, Parks and Trails Committee is not doing anything as regards trails. That if there's any question or concern about trails being developed, we are not pursuing anything right now other than Topping Road, which has already been funded and, identified.
I think on the plan, there was also a sidewalk on Thornhill itself on my street, which I don't know if that's since then been removed, but I remember I was on the neighborhood board and everyone was thinking, oh, they're going to put a sidewalk in our neighborhood. So it was just, again, same kind of scenario.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Guys and rumors.
we can all understand how it could be alarming.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't want to be alarmed.
No.
I think that doing it would be.
Right.
God,
Yeah.
hopefully it's alarming in a good way.
Right.
Well,
Not for everybody, exactly.
Not for everybody.
Yeah.
There's no sidewalk that's a positive to everybody. We're looking for the greater good. And
Yeah.
you guys have made every point I was about to accept. When we were working on that master plan, we looked at a lot of these trail options and how big of a chunk of population a particular trail would touch. And I'm only visualizing the ward map in my head right now, but these neighborhoods we're talking about are a whole lot of people. So I realize this trail is probably a pipe dream, but the upside is there's a whole lot of people that would connect to the main artery, which I think we all agree is the Clayton Road Trail. So I think it should stay in there. And if a bunch of people catch fire and they come chasing down their alderman, it could be removed someday. But as long as we're exposing people to the idea, as someone said, maybe it's 10 years from now, but the more people we expose to this idea, maybe it's got a chance someday. Leave it in there in some form.
I like your imagery of catching fire.
Yeah.
Oh, plus not all trails have to be paved trails either. We could
Right.
have, we could
Right,
have
no,
a,
we should
we
have.
could have a grass dirt trail and
As we
designate
do.
it as that, yeah, and let it go at
That's
that,
what-
not make a big deal about it, so.
Yeah,
Right,
just
and
mow it.
Stephanie identified it as a grass dirt trail, so they have a
Yeah.
trail.
Well, it's like
Not
half the trail, but there is a pretty easy way. I mean, I've run it too, but you know, if you come down Mason Valley, you can actually cut, I could cut from Thornhill past Old Colony back onto Mason Knoll Road to get into that neighborhood. And you could put a little dirt trail. There is a power line right away. If you connected Thornhill to Mason Knoll or Mason Valley onto Featherstone, the other half of that trail is already there. It's a dirt trail. I mean, that was kind of the planning though, was to try to get all those people there. And it's through, right? The trail that's there is not on anybody's property. It's behind other people's yards. So it's not trespassing. And if you put the rest of that trail in the power line, I mean, I don't think it would cost that much, and I don't think it'd be trespassing, and it would definitely help a lot of people get to the main artery.
And once you complete that, then you blow it through Principia all the way up to the access road.
Of course, you're going through Principia, you're on private property.
Oh, is even the Ameren power lines, is that there still?
It would
Because those power
require,
lines go right up through their meadows, all the way up to
Right.
the
But
south
that-
access road. It's a
So I think
beautiful
everything
spot.
other than the road that goes under the power lines is their property. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to defer to whoever owns, you know. I mean, there is kind of like a dirt road and there's trails all through, you know, in the grass
All
there that go all the way up to that church.
Yeah,
right
I mean,
by
I've
the
walked
power
it. That's
line.
why I've said like, boy, to add that eventually one day too, that'd be amazing.
so just to be clear, it would require an easement from Ameren. And then in addition, as we all know, it would also require the residents wanting it.
Right.
I think we need to just be very clear that the city would not force this trail upon anyone, especially if it's in your backyard.
And I still, you'd also have to have a surveyor okay that crossing from Princeton Terrace over to the Clayton Road Trail. Because I think everybody we spoke to at the time was very much against it, any person of authority. So if we were to suddenly legitimize a trail that ended with you crossing Clayton Road there, the town itself could become liable for potential problems where we don't necessarily want to have them. Because that is the bottom of a dip and it's a blind turn. So that's why we pursue it.
Donald,
If you remember, we had a member of the commission at the time who lived in one of the neighborhoods
Right.
and who recommended studying this trail
Right.
because
Yeah.
this did then.
Yeah.
So that the main reasoning for it even being outside.
Right.
Okay, well,
Okay, Fritz, does that get you?
yeah,
Anything?
yeah, no, I
He's
appreciate
still
the,
scratching his head.
yeah. No, I appreciate the conversation. I mean, like I said, the reasoning, I just the uniqueness of it. And yeah, it's not obviously coming anytime soon. But just wanted to get everyone's opinion and the history of it is helpful as well. So, no, I appreciate the conversation. And yeah, I like Steve's idea of reviewing
Yeah.
the plan as a whole coming up and, you know, relisting things of what's been accomplished and where we are, just kind of updating it and showing what we've achieved and what the city's achieved.
I got a lot of ideas of new trails I'd love to have.
We might also want to try to get an update from the county as to where we fit in their priority, you know, on the road, like there was the Ballast Road. I haven't heard much about that in a while.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then, you know,
That's what
Mason
the
Road
county-
North, we're supposed to be getting something, Mason Road North up to the highway from Clayton. We really had, since the pandemic, we haven't had a lot of information flowing our way as to what the status of various projects are. So we could check that too. I think Pam was on it. What's her name? I can't.
Pam
think.
Holman.
Yeah, Pam Holman was on that committee, so she might be able to tell us.
I can try to get an update for our next meeting.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, let's move on. I'd like to just note two things under other. I sent everyone the February newsletter via email today. And since we have the public recording, I would just like to let everyone know that it's always available on the city website. And the current issue is a banner on the homepage. So if you just click on Parks and Recreation newsletter, you can see everything that's happening for the month. And then the other item I'd like to mention is the city audit. If you haven't heard, the city received a good rating, good. And that rating, while everyone thinks and wants an excellent, the state auditor's office does not give many good ratings to petition audits. So that has been some good news. You can see the audit yourself on the city website. So feel free to hop on that link and take a look for yourself. And then I'd also like to share with you that after at least around 20 hours worth of interviewing and reporting and collecting data and answering questions, we had 0 findings in the Parks and Recreation Department. So we're giving ourselves a little round of applause because it's a lot of work, and we were even like surprised. We thought you're going to find something, certainly. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because we're not so good at tooting our own horns, and this was an important one. So I thought I would share that.
Congratulations.
We have a new date for the March meeting. If you noticed, it's the first Monday of March because the third Monday falls on a lot of spring breaks. And then also since we're not having a meeting in February. So we have March 7th at 6:30. If you can mark your calendars and note that change, so we will not meet on President's Day in February. Okay. Does anyone have anything else?
And can you tell us if they've found a new contractor for the Topping Road Trail, and is that still on schedule?
I don't know. I know that we were trying to find a new contractor at our last Board of Aldermen meeting. So let me follow up on that and I will send you an update.
Great, thank you.
Okay. If we don't have anything else, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
And
Thanks all.